solution with a whole lot of truth. Remedy Revolution is here for you. Ooh. And now here's your host, Aaron Page.
Hello, and welcome to the Remedy Revolution podcast. My name is Erin, and I'm really excited to talk to today's guest. He is a survivor of the same illness that my son went through and struggled with for such a long time, PANS or PANDAS. And he has really made this a story of triumph and victory over something that can be very debilitating. He's the owner of Green Valley Nutrition, a CBD company, and I'm very excited to welcome Ethan Pompeo. Ethan, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I have to start here because I think it's so integral to both of our stories, but I would love to hear what your initial onset looked like and how did you figure out, so many years ago that this was a panda's case? Because I know most doctors weren't talking about it, especially several years ago.
Yes, it was a long road to recovery and a long road to even getting a proper diagnosis. My symptoms first started when I was 13, which is considered basically the older kind of range of people who develop PANS and PANDAS. Generally, this is a pediatric autoimmune disorder, typically, although we do see some adults diagnosed with this. But at the age of 13, I was kind of setting the stage for my life, right? Entering adolescence, getting ready, geared up for high school. And PANDAS was very, very interruptive of all of that. And so essentially, I fit the mold of having symptoms onset very rapidly. I was quote unquote normal and healthy one morning. The next morning, I developed a skip step where I had to tap my right foot twice while I walked. And so it just developed from there. Tics multiplied, became more severe, more frequent. And soon it was very difficult to do anything without having tics interrupting me and compulsions and severe anxiety and OCD that comes with that, the anger and frustration of having to deal with this and having no answers. So my life suffered greatly from the onset of these symptoms, as well as my family and my parents. And my parents were my advocates through all of this. I always have to give them credit because you're right, this was 20 years ago now, when my symptoms started, and there was virtually no information on pandas available at
Right.
that time. So I was initially misdiagnosed with Tourette syndrome, which was essentially a label that I was given in order to, prescribe treatment in the form of drugs. And so by the time I was 17, I had been on over 40 different prescription meds, none of which worked, many of which the side effects outweighed the benefits. I remember feeling like a zombie at times and getting in trouble at school for not being able to focus or falling asleep as a consequence of all these medications that I had was on. And so it wasn't until really the end of my high school experience that we finally got the PANDAS diagnosis through just visiting specialist after specialist until we eventually found someone who knew what they were dealing with. And
Right.
PANDAS is particularly difficult to diagnose, right? It's a clinical diagnosis. There's no blood test you can take to say, hey, you have PANDAS. It involves looking at your blood work and looking at your medical history and your symptoms and putting the pieces together and determining, yeah, this is a case of PANDAS.
Yeah. Yeah, so tell me at that age, because, I think so many of the parents out there haven't necessarily experienced pans or pandas for themselves only as a parent. And so we know how we feel, but I'm curious to know what that onset was like for you. What was the first thing that made you think, oh, there's something not
Mm.
right?
Yeah, I will never forget that moment, to be honest with you. It is a
Yeah.
life-changing event to realize, something is wrong with me. And it was several months into that initial skip step tick that I described, where we were getting ready for bed. My siblings had already gone to bed, and I'm the oldest of four in my family. And I remember brushing my teeth, and I couldn't grab the toothbrush just right, so to speak. And
Mm.
so my compulsivity, spurred by this brain inflammation, was telling me to pick the toothbrush up and put it down and pick it up and put it down over and over again until it felt just right. And now I couldn't get that feeling to be just right in this moment. And I remember just frustration welling up in me. I was so upset and angry. I started banging the toothbrush on the countertop. There was toothpaste spraying up on the mirror, and I started spewing profanities, very out of character for me generally. And my dad entered the bathroom and said, "Son, like this is not okay. What's going on here?" And he saw the mess that was created. He heard me, yelling in the bathroom, and that's when he realized, like, we need to get you some help.
Hmm.
And I just kind of broke down in that moment, like, yeah, you're right. Like I am out of control. I can't control myself. Something is very wrong here. And that was really a tough pill to swallow for me. But I think it was good of my dad to recognize that and say, we've kind of let this slide. We thought there was just some goofy thing you were doing as you're entering adolescence, but now, like, this is clearly not normal behavior. So that was kind of the beginning of seeking official medical treatment for
Sure,
this.
sure. Yeah, so I think I know very well just because my own son onset was about 13 years ago, so not too terribly long after you, but even still, there was very few
Mm,
treatments offered, diagnoses offered. It was kind of like, well, maybe it's this, like I've kind of heard of it, but I don't know what to do with it and I don't treat it. That was kind of the attitude or outright denial
right.
that it even existed. And so I do wonder what that journey was like from the beginning. So, once you finally were able to get a diagnosis, what was that journey like? And what was that feeling like? Understanding or having a little bit better understanding of what might be going on.
Yeah, that was a huge turning point for me. And you're right, I had been written off by doctors, say, "Oh, it's just anxiety," or "Oh, this isn't real." We scoured the internet and the library for any information we could find about this, and it's counterintuitive to put a strep throat infection together with a neurological disorder. So it is when there's limited information out there, it's very difficult to discern what's actually going on. So that was a struggle in and of itself. But finally, getting that diagnosis saying, "Hey, this is a classic case of PANDAS," it really helped us put together a clear picture of how to move forward. So instead of trying to treat the symptoms with pharmaceutical drugs, we could actually target the inflammation and the source of that inflammation, like the bacterial infection that I was battling for
Hmm.
years on end, in order to set the course or a pathway for healing, really, right? It was a different kind of dynamic of treatment. Instead of targeting the symptoms, we're targeting the root cause in order to mitigate the symptoms more naturally.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a lot of times, even some of the conventional treatments that are offered for directly for PANS and PANDAS, like antibiotics, for an extended period of time, while that might be useful initially at getting some of the infection down, we have to deal with long-term consequences of,
Hmm.
prolonged antibiotic use. And so I'm curious, what was that journey like for you? Were you navigating then a lot more pharmaceuticals, or what was it that then kind of led you into the CBD route and looking at that as an inflammatory to address the inflammation that was going on?
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess first I'll address the question of inflammation. So, a lot of physicians who specialize in PANDAS will recommend a two-pronged approach,
Hmm.
and that's what I did. So the first prong is like eliminating the source of infection. So I did go on a mid-range course of antibiotics to try to
Hmm.
get nip that infection and get rid of the strep bacteria. And then the second prong is battling the inflammation. So for me, that looked like diet change and lifestyle change, getting more exercise, stepping away from a sedentary lifestyle, changing my diet, eating an anti-inflammatory diet of whole foods, reducing sugar intake, and now as an adult, minimal alcohol or simple sugar consumption
Hmm.
in general is beneficial on many levels. Um, the one thing that did work for me as a young adult was actually cannabis. And I
Mm-hmm.
am not condoning cannabis use. What I'm saying is, after being on over 40 different prescription meds over the years, the that use model of relying on substances and chemicals for relief was normalized in my mind. So as I entered high school and I tried this illicit form of medicine, if you will, I found relief for the first time in my life. I mean, I would
Mm-hmm.
smoke and my tics would go away and I would feel more relaxed and at ease. And it was like, in my mind, with the little information that I had, it was like a miracle cure. So I just
Right.
relied on that for years, despite what my parents told me, despite interactions with law enforcement that I had as a young adult, and all these things, these stress-inducing issues and the side effects of smoking and using illicit substances eventually caught up with me, and I
Mm-hmm.
found myself in a place. I had my first anxiety attack where my body physically locked up, and it was just sheer terror. And I don't talk about that very often, but that incident like really was a wake-up call for me and saying, look, something needs to change, because in essence I was looking at cannabis as this natural holistic option, but I was using it no differently than the medications I was being prescribed previously,
Mm-hmm.
right? It was a band-aid to cover up my symptoms. So it did, however, point me to the bigger question of, why is cannabis helping me? Like, what is it in this that's helping me feel better? And it wasn't the THC, because I've cut that out of my life as of long ago, and I feel much better now. It was actually another compound in cannabis called CBD. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're not familiar with it, I like to say it's nature's most powerful anti-inflammatory. So the CBD that I was consuming through my cannabis use was actually reducing the encephalitis and the brain inflammation in
Mm-hmm.
my basal ganglia and helping my symptoms to be mitigated and helping me to feel better and all those things. So when I realized I could get CBD in a pure form, an oral form, I don't have to smoke, I don't have to ingest intoxicating compounds, I don't have to risk my health for inhaling carcinogens and particulate matter and any of these things. I could get that anti-inflammatory benefit from this healing plant without any of the negatives. That was like a turning point for me, because CBD really, really does help with my symptoms, and I like to say it was the catalyst for my lifestyle change.
Mm-hmm.
If I may
Mm-hmm.
make an analogy, I've done immunotherapy in the form of allergy shots in the
Mm-hmm.
past. And when you go in for your allergy shot appointment, they ask if you've taken your antihistamine that day. You're always supposed to take an antihistamine before you go in for your immunotherapy training. Why? To reduce the impact of the side effects and the risk of a reaction to the allergens they're injecting, or however you're doing it. So the antihistamine, in a sense, uh, allows your body to absorb those compounds and build up a resistance to the allergens while making it a little bit easier on your body to tolerate. And that's how I view CBD. It reduced the inflammation in my brain so that I could kind of make progress in the other areas of treatment that I was doing, including cognitive behavioral therapy, just in general, changing my habits and my lifestyle. And
Mm-hmm.
CBD made that journey a little bit easier. Whereas, so often when we battle sickness or disability, it's so easy to get stuck. And especially with tics, right? We're physically stuck in these routines. The last thing we want
Right.
to do is like talk about it or think about it after that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because, our journey was somewhat parallel with my son, where, homeopathy was that intervention for us. And that led me to become a homeopath,
Mm,
treating pans and pandas. Because I think, it was by no means the only intervention that we used. It was just the first consistent intervention where we saw lots of progress. And so I find that so interesting about your journey and utilizing CBD. So when you first started learning more about CBD and how it might help you, what symptoms were you still experiencing that then the CBD would assist with?
Oh, at that point, it was everything. I had pretty much given up on the conventional treatment cold turkey, if you will. I weaned off my meds and I said no more. I was experiencing what I call physician fatigue. I
Yeah.
was just sick of doctor's appointments, sick of medications. I didn't want to be treated like a lab rat any longer. And that's about the same time I had figured out about cannabis. So I just said,
Hmm.
I'm forging my own path here. This is what's working for me, so this is what I'm going to do. So that's in a sense how it all started and it shifted in my mind. And then again, just as I learned and discovered more, I realized what worked for me and what didn't.
Yeah. And then when do you feel like you got to a point where you were no longer exhibiting the symptoms that you had been struggling with for such a long time? How long did that take?
Yeah, so it was quite a long journey. I mean, just battling with those symptoms without a pathway to healing was very isolating. I'll
Yeah.
say that it was a lonely place to be. My parents never gave up hope on me, but I gave up hope on myself and kind of succumbed to my illness for a long time. And again, it wasn't until I kind of found something that gave me a little bit of relief that I was able to step back and take a deep breath and refocus and think to myself, like, what are some things in my life that I need to change? I Today I think of it as body, mind, and spirit, but I break it down into three categories I call the three S's. So stop, start, and smile. And everybody's pathway to healing is going to be different. There's no like standard protocol for treating pandas or many
Right.
autoimmune disorders. So, maybe CBD will work for you, anti-inflammatory should, but maybe it's something else. I've heard of people healing with essential oils or IVIG or any number of treatments, but the bottom line is we need to stop doing things that are harming us. Stop the bacterial infection, right? Stop the source of infection. Stop eating inflammatory foods.
Hmm.
Stop being sedentary in your lifestyle. Stop being woe is me in your mind, right? On the other hand, start doing things that are good for your health. Start a new exercise routine. Start eating good foods. Start making good habits. Start hanging out with the right people, all those kinds of things. And then finally, the smile is like find ways to be joyful through all of this
Right.
because first of all, you're never alone. I went through a long period of my life where I was afraid to talk about this, afraid to talk about pandas, ashamed about my symptoms. My classmates would look over and say, "Hey, are you okay?" They'd see me ticking in class and just be concerned. And it would drive me crazy. I remember just being so angry inside, like, stop asking me if I'm okay. I'm fine over here. But getting to the point where I could think about that in a different way, like, they're genuinely concerned, asking me if I'm okay. They want to make sure that, like, they're not bullying me. They're asking me if I'm okay. And
Right.
that mindset shift was incredibly healing. It took the onus off of me, took the pressure off my shoulders so that I could just be as I am. And now I'm like a huge advocate for pandas awareness. It's put me in a position where I can tell my story to people who need to hear it, so give hope to the parents and perhaps to the patients too, and just share like examples of things I've done that have helped. And if there's one person listening to this today who gets some benefit from it, then that's amazing. That's why I do this.
Yeah. So, um, I think as a parent, we do everything that we possibly can to support our kids, and it's so challenging, and devastating, really, to watch your child go through so many of these very difficult symptoms. So I guess I would love to hear from you. What is it that parents might be able to do in order to support their child who might be going through this diagnosis?
That's a great question. And really a challenging one because again, when I was in the midst of my and when I was at the peak of this battle with pandas, I did not want to talk about it. I'd come home from school and rage and have a flare up of tics and even like punch a hole in the wall in my bedroom. And my parents would kind of let me be because they knew if they came in and asked me about it or tried to interfere, it would just make things worse. It would just make me more upset. And I think many parents with kids with pandas understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's very odd because like as someone who's dealt with this, I'm completely conscious and aware of what I'm doing. I'm aware of the fact that it's abnormal. I'm aware of the fact that it's strange. I'm aware of the fact that it's disturbing people in the house, yet there's nothing I can do to stop it that I'm aware of, right?
Right.
And so I'll point again to cognitive behavioral therapy. Learning to retrain your brain to respond differently to those stimuli, like changing your lifestyle. I would come back home from school, go in my room, get on my phone, and that electronic device use would trigger me. I would scroll up on my smartphone and it wouldn't scroll just right, and I had to like tap the phone and go back and do it again. And this would happen over and over again until I became so frustrated I just hurl the phone across the room and like just break down. And that's not how your life should look. If that's a trigger for you, don't make that your daily habit of coming home, going in your room, and getting on your phone. Like, come home from school or work, go outside, get some fresh air, like, throw the ball around. I play drums. Like, I'll come home and get on the drum set and beat the drums for a while, get my anxiety out on the drum set, make music with friends, be creative. Whenever I'm fully engaged in something, using all four arms and legs, my focus, I have no tics at all. And
Hmm.
playing drums does that for me. Riding dirt bikes or bicycles does that for me. It's important to find these outlets where we can encourage our kids to go do these things instead of getting in bad habits so that they can actually have some freedom to express themselves and do things they enjoy while escaping those trigger moments. Because quite honestly, like I remember one time my dad came in and just like grabbed me and tried to hold my arm still, and I was like exploding on the inside, and that's not a good way to approach it. And
Hmm.
it's very like I have four daughters now, so I'm a dad. I like have imagined what this would be like for me at this point. And of course I'm hypersensitive to it. Like if I see my daughter doing something weird, I'm like, always on the lookout. But
Sure.
I would say, if I were to imagine one of my daughters going through that, I think the better thing to do is let them move through their tick, but go in and say, "Hey, like I'm going outside to ride bikes. Do you want to come with me?" And just waiting for them
Hmm.
because it may take me a little while to get out of that tick, but at least now I have like a distraction. Like, I got to get out of this so I can go ride my bike. It's not like I got to get out of this so I can go into the next tick. Like now
Yeah.
we're moving forward towards something. So does that make sense?
Absolutely. I've seen a lot of this with my patients as well, and also that it stops that spiral. A lot of the times when something starts, we start to well, I say we, but only because I can empathize because I've seen
Yeah.
it so often. But the spiral just starts going, and all of a sudden, one little tick becomes, two ticks becomes like an OCD loop. It becomes,
Mm-hmm.
something much bigger that then turns into an all-out rage or something like that. So I think that's really helpful. One of the strategies I've always utilized is, I don't interfere. I haven't interfered with my son. Thankfully, we don't have those anymore.
Yeah.
But just allowing him to come to me when he is ready has really it takes an enormous amount of patience, I will say,
Yeah.
from a parent's perspective. But not only because, you're watching your kid do something that might be inappropriate behaviorally, but it's not just about that. It's we desperately want to help them heal,
Yeah.
right? And so to step in is sometimes not always the best strategy. Sometimes we just have to allow and then redirect into something new. So, yeah, well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I will say it is very interesting to me to speak to somebody who's come out on the other side of it. My son and I have had many conversations now that he's much older and doesn't experience some of those things. He does say to me that a lot of the things he doesn't recall. Um,
Hmm.
and I don't know if that's because of the inflammation that was happening at that particular time, or if it's almost like some kind of a wall that he's put
Hmm.
up because it was extreme trauma going through some of those things as a young child. Interesting. Okay, so tell me about Green Valley Nutrition, what you're doing now, and the kinds of products that you're offering to help some of these kiddos and anybody else who is struggling with any kind of inflammation.
Yeah. So, my use of cannabis products led me to discover CBD. I covered that, and what I wanted was something that would offer me these benefits without any of the risks, right? None of the side effects, no risk of intoxication, something that would have been safe for me to take as a 13-year-old. So, what I've developed is a product that's completely THC free. We have everything from tinctures, like sublingual oil drops, to gummies, to topical applications for local inflammation and pain relief. We even have treats for dogs and cats. So this is something that's safe for the whole family. And in fact, many of my customers who are using this for their PANDAS kids or any other kind of inflammatory illness, the parents are taking this too because it's stressful on the whole family, right? I think my dad in particular really struggled with what you were talking about earlier, like just having no control over the situation. As fathers in particular, I know we want to help fix the problem. That's what we do. That's what we're wired
Right.
to do. So when you're helpless like that and your child is like refusing to take any help and you don't know what to do, it's like disabling in and of itself as a parent. So I totally get that. And just dealing with any kind of health crisis in your family can be stressful. So CBD has actually been shown in clinical trials to reduce anxiety naturally, and of course the anti-inflammatory properties. There's a lot more research we need to do on this, which is why I'm currently engaged in clinical trials with the University of Virginia here in Charlottesville. We're studying the effects of oral CBD on chronic pain management. The
Mm.
osteopathic surgeon here is spearheading that trial for post-surgical recovery. So, we're trying to do everything we can to push that research forward and learn more about the benefits, the risks, and everything in between. But what I can say is by removing the THC from my products, there's no risk of intoxication. You're not going to fail a drug screening by taking any of these products. They're incredibly safe. I mean, there is no known toxic level of CBD that you can take. It's just very, very considered safe, if you will. So we have all different types of products and strengths. And what we generally recommend, our number one question is how much do I take? And what
Hmm.
we recommend is starting slow and working up to find what works best for you.
Hmm.
So, really, the only known side effect is drowsiness, which is why people use it for sleep in higher doses. So, if you find you or your child is feeling sleepy or lethargic, that could be a sign that you're getting too much, and then you can cut back. But generally, we want to start slow, work up, and then once you see some results, that's where, you found the dose that works for you and you can stick with that. And over the years, I've taken less and less as I've done other things to improve my health.
Yeah, so one of the questions I get a lot is about because I deal with lots of pediatrics is taste. What does it taste like, and how do we mitigate that for young kids?
So it's pretty benign, especially compared to other like herbal extracts. There's really no flavor. We have a proprietary extraction system that we've developed where essentially we extract the pure CBD and leave everything else behind. So there's no plant fats or chlorophyll or fatty acids or residual compounds at all. So the CBD is completely tasteless. Now we
Hmm.
do use MCT coconut oil as a carrier oil for
Hmm.
effective, consistent dosing. So you will get like, there's a feeling of oil under your tongue, maybe a subtle coconut flavor. But aside from that, it's pretty benign. I mean, some kids have an adversity to the oil. I recommend adding it to like juice or a smoothie or even like a breakfast cereal in the morning, just in order to get it in your body. Now, it does work best if taken under your tongue. I say hold it under your tongue for about 30 seconds before swallowing. it'll bypass your digestive system that way into your bloodstream sublingually and get to
Hmm.
work very fast. But if that doesn't work, you can always ingest it. We also have soft gels if if you're fine taking pills and capsules, they're small. And then, of course, the last resort would be gummies. Everybody wants their supplements sugar coated these days. The gummies are super popular. We do use like natural colors and very minimal sugar and all that.
Hmm.
But it is also a very popular product. So, really, all of the products contain the same active ingredient. So, it's just personal preference at that point, what works best for you. What we typically say, for young children, we have a low strength oil. It's a 350 milligram CBD oil drops for kids, is what we call it,
Hmm.
actually. And that product's really popular for young kids because it's our lowest strength. So you can just start there. Half a dropper is a serving size. A little bit goes a long way, and then you can just adjust as needed from there.
Yeah, so one of the things that you shared with me that I find so you know, I I just love a story, a success story in general, but I love a story of a family business as well. So you shared with me that you and your wife run the business. Tell me a little bit more about that and how you guys really developed Green Valley Nutrition from the get-go, and where you're at today.
Thanks. Yeah, I love the story because I never thought that I'd be sitting here, selling products internationally into all 50 states. Like, it's really cool. I started making these products just for myself, for my own needs, out of the
Hmm.
spare bedroom of the house I was living in. I was working on a restorative agriculture project in Southern Virginia, very impoverished area, and there really wasn't much going on down there, but I loved the lifestyle. I loved working outside, getting my hands dirty, eating the fresh, farm to table produce every day, working out in nature, exercising, moving my body every day. I fell in love with that lifestyle. And then when I realized that CBD was helping me, I started just experimenting. I started mixing oils in different concentrations, cooking with it, putting it in capsules and gummies. And pretty soon I got the attention of my friends and family. And, grandma wanted it for her knee pain. Granny wanted it to help her sleep, and my neighbor wanted to try it out and see if it helped him relax on a Friday night, without drinking beer. So people started to realize, this is a real alternative that can benefit my life. And this was at a time when CBD was still largely considered cannabis in Virginia.
Hmm.
So the market was fresh, and I realized I had an opportunity here to offer a new product to people who were looking for alternatives, and it's just grown from there. And today we operate a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility here in Virginia, and we're working with leading research universities, and it's just it's been an awesome journey. And I like to say, most, we're in America, the land of opportunity, but most businesses start by taking investment capital and running millions of dollars for ads and infrastructure and this and that. I have actually bootstrapped this since day one, since 2015, just by making small, like well-educated steps towards growing the business. So my wife and I, we are true owners of the company. Everything goes through our one facility. We manufacture everything in-house, and we work with local growers all over Virginia to source our materials. So unlike I think 90% of CBD companies or supplement companies in general that you see out there, we're not just like private labeling someone else's product and putting our sticker on it. We're actually manufacturing everything in-house to very high standards. Third-party lab testing of all our products. It's going in my body, so I want to make sure it's clean and safe. And so that's how we earn people's trust in this industry, that's really been wrought with greed since the beginning. So
Hmm.
I appreciate you having me on and letting me share my pitch here. But I will say, there's no such thing as a miracle pill. I always, give that word of caution. If you want to try CBD, great. I think it can offer great benefits. There are also clinical trials showing how CBD use can benefit you, actually improve the results of cognitive behavioral therapy training, just like I described to you with the allergy shots. Like, you
Right.
take CBD oil, it helps take the edge off so that your CBT, your brain retraining work is a little bit easier. And so that was totally my experience. And so now I use CBT every day to kind of shut off those triggers, move myself away from stress-inducing moments or a tic that might rise up, anything like that. So CBD was instrumental in that lifestyle change and those habit-forming changes that I've made.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you. So Ethan, every single guest answers our 8 rapid fire questions towards the end of our show. So are you ready for those questions?
I hope so.
All right. Number one, if you could choose one natural remedy for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Hmm. Well, exercise, I would say.
Awesome. All right. Number two, tell us something most people don't know about you.
I'm kind of an open book these days, to be honest with you. Okay, so I actually, over COVID, I got a pilot certificate. It had always been a dream of mine, and dealing with tics and motor tics, I never thought I would be able to achieve that, but I did. I got my pilot certificate, and again, flying an airplane is one of those things where I have zero tics, zero distractions. I'm completely focused in behind the yoke, and I've noticed through being in the aviation industry. That other people have tics as well. I've seen like the eye blinking and the head shaking and all those little things. So I don't know why, but I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, very cool. All right, if I were to compile a playlist of happy music, what song would you suggest be added?
Something by Mozart, maybe a piano concerto in a major key.
Wow, I think only the second person who's given me a classical music selection. So, very cool. All right, what is your favorite guilty pleasure?
My mom's chocolate chip cookies.
And what's the most influential book you've ever read?
This might be cliche, but the Bible for sure.
Mhm.
I try to glean all of my life information from that book because it's just so dense and it has information that can apply to every area of your life.
Awesome. What does the word revolution mean to you?
Hmm. Going against the status quo and creating change for good.
And what does the word remedy mean to you?
Hmm. Um, a tool that brings about complete healing.
And lastly, if you could impart one piece of wisdom onto our listeners, what would that be?
I would say be open and honest. I struggled a long time with isolation because I didn't want to talk about what I was dealing with, but just learning to be okay with myself and the good and the bad was very freeing. We all face challenges in life, and if you haven't yet, you will. So learning to be okay with that not only helps you to conquer those moments, but also puts you in a position to relate to others and share with others what you've learned.
Well, thank you so much, Ethan. If people are looking for your CBD products, where can they find you?
It's greenvalleynutrition.com. I have a pretty big following on Instagram as well. It's Ethan underscore pandas. And I post some cool stuff about my life on what I do, motorcycles, airplanes, all that kind of stuff. The website is a rich resource as well. I have a blog on there and lots of descriptions about the product. Anything you'd want to know is on the website as well. I've got a pretty large email list as well where we send out information and updates. So stay in touch with me, please. I'm happy to be an advocate for you and answer any questions you have about pandas or CBD.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you again, Ethan, and we will see you next time. Take care.
With hope as a guiding light, through darkest days we'll fight the night. With a whole lot of passion, with a whole lot of truth. Remedy Revolution is here for you.